All right, I have started recording, so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Council of Crowns to order. It is 8:10 on Thursday, June 13th, 2016, and our agenda for this evening is to go over old business of Corpora review status, Ren Fair 2016, Highland Games 2016, Kenai Peninsula Fair 2016, Wolf's Cry 2016, Tanana Valley Fair 2016, then jump into new business to cover the June Althing, Month of Crown and Elections, membership issues, Alaska State Fair 2016, and then potentially to go into a closed session to discuss awards because coronation is only 6 weeks away. And just to do a double check, were there any additions to the agenda for this evening? Okay, I'll do a quick roll call, I guess, so because this is being recorded so that we know who's in attendance. So Hadelin, the monarch of Northreach, is in attendance. Mini Bard, the monarch of Astral Winds, is not yet in attendance. And Goran, the monarch of Lupa Moon, is in attendance. And Rosedath, the monarch of Frozen Coast, is not yet in attendance. Rage, the monarch of Ravenstone, is not yet in attendance. And Hazel, the monarch of Icefire Bay, is in attendance. So,
yay!
Right, 50%, yay! I have notified our missing monarchs, and hopefully they have an opportunity to join us this evening because we have some big things to talk about. So fingers crossed that our numbers grow as the evening. Okay, so our first order of old business is Corpora review status. And this has been a big item for a fair chunk of time for us now. And sort of just to bring everybody up to speed on where we're at in the process, we have our first real vote on the new documentation, so being the new draft of the bylaws, the new draft of the admin manual, scheduled for this weekend, which is the Principality-wide Althing. The that's posted is article by article and section by section, based on the June 9th draft. And we have had some comments and sort of, typo type things brought up where a couple things snuck into that draft that were from a previous version. So I wanted to chat with the council to see how we wanted to best handle that and approach that, because I don't want to make a bunch of edit changes right before the vote, seeing as it's Thursday, but some of the changes that are in that version were unintentional and bad edits on my part. So bad, and that may complicate things. So do you guys have feelings, thoughts, opinions on that?
I think if you needed to make a correction and then just post the detailed specific correction, you'd be okay.
Yeah, so the areas where, there's an issue, it basically reverted back to, I had an old draft that I was working from, and then I went through and thought I had caught all of the places where it didn't mesh with the January 30th draft, but there were a couple sections where I missed a change. One of them in particular is the underage players having to pass the Council of Crowns with a unanimous vote, whereas the January 30th version was like a 2/3 majority. So that was totally an unintentional change, and that was my poor proofreading that caused that. So you guys feel that would be acceptable, basically to go back and catch the places where it unintentionally changed from the January 30th version.
I would approve that. If you're trying to be over the top awesome about it, in other documentation that I do where I have to do that, it pops up in a different color to denote that it's a change that's bringing it back. For example, when I do a bylaw change in my world where I have to make a correction, it's like grammatical or something stupid like I used the wrong bylaw name, I just put it in a different color and I don't have to bring it back before a full vote when I do that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there was another place where I referenced wrong our section of an article in the bylaws, and it's supposed to be 2, and I had 3 in there. It's a numbering mistake. So I could totally do that. What I did for the June 9th draft was I highlighted anything that was changed in yellow, and then anything that was removed, I just highlighted in yellow with a strike through. So I could go back. So the other thing, this is something we may have to revisit if we have more monarchs join. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was prepared for, questions or that we had addressed everything, but we can come back to that when we have a little bit more of a full house. So we'll move on to Ren Fair 2016. This is a wrap-up topic at this point in time since Ren Fair has come to a close. I was able to post the total income for the fair, which was, I want to say $4,687, which is pretty great, I think. I still have not sat down to total up all of our expenses. I need to do that. I've been sort of focused on the Corpora review stuff, getting that prepared for this weekend. So perhaps I will task Aurora with that since I haven't managed to get it done and it's already Thursday. It'd be really nice to have a final wrap-up of what our take-home profit was from that event. Gordon, did you want to speak to how that all went down since you were technically autocrating that?
Sure. Everything went really, really well. There was a outpouring of support from Loop and Moon. We had a couple of people from Ravenstone and Frozen Coast come by to help out, and everything went really, really smooth. There was no hiccups. I think we just have the formula down pretty good now. And, we raised the price on the arena, and I don't think that we slowed down literally at all. I think we made almost exactly double we made last year, and we doubled the price. So I don't think our customers even noticed. Everything was going well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the formula is really good. The way that we had the sort of volunteer staff set up with a dedicated cashier and a couple people working sword sales and a couple people working the arena and one person working the arena gate was really good. I didn't feel like any one single person was just utterly overtaxed. Even the people who were in charge of the specific areas each had an opportunity to have a break. Kraken didn't have to be there all day to work the sword booth, and Grim and Abram didn't have to be there all day to work the arena. We had a great setup crew. I think it was pretty smooth, and I didn't feel like any one person or tiny group of people got just completely overwhelmed. We had some people who were super, super dedicated. They showed up all the time, but that was mainly because they wanted to, not because they had to. There were other options. So that was really cool. One of the things I did want to note about that, having worked the cashier for Ren Fair, was that our cash handling for the actual booth for Ren Fair was really smooth. We typed out like a cash handling procedure, and everybody who handled the money was really diligent. We had really good countdowns. There wasn't a point in time where there was any uncertainty regarding the money, which is always good. So, yay!
Well done.
Pretty well. So I'm hoping to continue to apply that same sort of formula to our future events, which is a great segue into Highland Games 2016. So Rage is the autocrat for Highland Games 2016. She has also appointed Kira, and I apologize if I pronounce that wrong. I always call her Danny, and I'm sorry if it's Kyra. I'm a bad person. But she's been working on the schedule, so the three of us have been working pretty closely together to get everything buttoned down. All the little T's and I's are getting crossed and dotted, insurance, application, site fees, all of that. So the volunteer schedule has been posted as of today, and so we are looking for volunteers. This is a principality event, so that means all parks are super encouraged to assist. We've got a good little core group going, but just like Ren Fair, the more people you have to help out, the less anybody feels completely exhausted and drained at the end of it. So Highland Games are June 25th and 26th at the Alaska State Fairgrounds in Palmer. So it is the same weekend as the Frozen Coast's big RP campout, which is a bummer. But we'll all figure it out. We're pretty much going to apply the same booth setup and formula as we did at Ren Fair, so that should be pretty smooth and pretty good. So, good times. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Is this a similar booth fee and setup to how they do at Frozen Coast when they're working?
You know, I haven't ever been to the Frozen Coast 4th of July booth, but it is pretty similar. So we have a fighting arena set up, and then we have sword sales in the actual booth. So, and I think that's pretty much what Frozen Coast has done in the past as well. And then, of course, we give out, we pass out flyers and recruitment information so that people know how to find us if they just love it and they want to do it every weekend, and they can become new excited members. We try to hit them from all angles.
10-4.
So next order is Kenai Peninsula Fair 2016. So that is... actually I have these out of order. Bummer. So the Kenai Peninsula Fair is the it's the third weekend in August, and Sora from Frozen Coast is the autocrat for that event. We are actually getting our booth for free there, and they are giving us several 45-minute time slots for battle games and demos in their pig pen, and they are also giving us time on their small stage to do like information or lectures or very tiny demos. There's only room for a couple people on that stage. But they're giving us a lot of exposure there, and they're super excited to have us. And Sora is doing a great job of putting that all together. We'll be basically using the same formula there, where we'll have the fighting arena and sword sales in the booth and provide recruitment material, with the really nice addition of a lot of demo and FaceTime opportunities there as well. So Sora's been getting people together, and I imagine we'll see a principality-wide call-out for volunteers for that as well. The other cool thing about volunteering at these events is that you get free admission for volunteering to help. So works out pretty great. Also, I want to remind people that there's the opportunity to utilize the Principality travel stipend to get to these events to volunteer. So if you are from far away and want to attend one of these, we will help you get there, and then we will get you into the event for free in exchange for 3 to 4 hours of volunteering your time to tell people about the awesomeness of AmpGuard in Alaska. And the next one, 2016, I have appointed Talon as the autocrat for that event. We have a really cool new location. So it's still at the Alaska State Fairgrounds in Palmer, but instead of being in the huge Robarchek field, it is actually on the fairgrounds proper over by Yellow Trail. So we will have one of the big log pavilions. We will have picnic tables. We will have access to the Equestrian Center bathrooms with sinks and water and flushing toilets, and we will have access to electricity. So we're stepping it up this year. We did also, at the last Council of Crowns meeting, have to adjust the date for that. So Wolf's Cry is now July 29th through the 31st in order to allow for our participation in the Tanana Valley Fair, which is the first 2 weekends in August up in Fairbanks, which is the next item on our old business. I haven't officially appointed Mini Bard or Astriana Autocrat for that event, but they have both been working on it, so I imagine we'll task one of them with being officially in charge of it. I was hoping to have an update from Mini Bard on where we're at with that. I know we haven't formally submitted our application, so that's still in the works, but we are planning on doing that. Again, same format, fighting arena, sword sales, recruitment, which makes for a really busy summer. So that takes care of our old business, and lets us move on to new business. The first item of new business is the June Althing. So I posted the language for the June Althing a week ago, yay, in advance, and it is like 31 items. It's a big Althing. The first 2 items are for Joshua Nelson and Amanda Chudnovsky to decrease their membership termination time from indefinite to 1 year with time served, so that they would return after Wolf's Cry. Did you guys have any questions about that? I know, Goran, you're pretty up to speed on that, seeing as they came from your park, but Hazel, did you have any questions about that?
I don't know the one about Amanda, I'm sorry, but you don't have to take up very much time. If you give me the briefest of recaps, I'll be cool.
Sure. So last year at Wolf's Cry, there was an incident where a group of people were discovered to be smoking a prohibited substance in their tent, and they were asked to leave the grounds immediately, which they did, and the members who were involved in that, the adults received indefinite membership terminations, and the non-adults received 6 month to 1 year, 6 month membership terminations, and then they were allowed to return. So Josh and Amanda were adults involved, and they have asked to be allowed to return to play.
Ten-4, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So those are the first 2 items on the Principality agenda, and then the following 29 or 27 items are section by section and article by article, going over the language for the bylaws and admin manual. I did have a question that was posed to me, and that was, if you have, I don't know, if you don't agree with sort of word choices in the current drafts, should you vote that section down? One example that was given was in one of the areas we say a regular member in good standing, but there really isn't such a thing as a regular member in good standing. You're a regular member. If you're not in good standing, you're not a regular member. There's no such thing as a regular member not in good standing. So, if you don't think that in good standing should be included in that section, should you vote that down? And I guess ultimately that's, I don't know, personal preference, right? But
No,
I'm interested to have some.
should be no, because that's a grammatical issue. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're voting on content, not on like grammar and typos.
I would agree with that. I mean, there's other things like somebody could object to a pronoun or you say he, she, and somebody goes, well, there's a third pronoun now, or that could get really grammatically taxing.
Now, if somebody doesn't like a word that actually changes the, I don't know, end result of the item, then they should absolutely vote no on that. But if they see a misplaced comma or a misspelled word or the wrong word used where the intent is clear and it's something we can clean up during the grammatical typo cleanup phase, then they shouldn't vote that down.
So that's something that we should probably be ready to field with our parts on at the time of Althing, is that the intent is to approve sort of concepts as opposed to this is not the final draft. The goal for that is we would have that final draft approval in July, the ratification. So I'll take an action item to put up a clarifying post so that membership has an opportunity to consider that. And then I also wanted to just touch base with you guys what I did for each section. The actual Althing language is it's approved the language as it exists in the January 30th draft of the corporate bylaws for Article 1, and so on and so forth. And do you think that there should be any changes to that specific wording that might be the purpose of the approval? As opposed to... Go ahead.
I think a general clarifying statement that happens before people actually start voting to clarify what specifically is we're voting on would be fine, rather than trying to make 32 long drawn out items. Okay.
Then I will do that. I will add a clarifying statement that the purpose is not to get into the grammar and typos and comma placement and pronoun haggling, but to approve concepts.
Yay.
Okay. So there were some other... Did anybody have local items for the Althing? I know Ravenstone did. They posted that. I was wondering if anybody else did.
Just the one thing that I posted. Although that's really more of a municipality-wide thing, I guess.
What was that?
The one about Karina coming out to talk to the Althing?
Oh, right. Yeah, was that something that she would be willing to do, like, I don't know, a message or something ahead of time?
I haven't asked her yet because we hadn't had the meeting to decide what it was we wanted to do. I mean, she probably would if I asked her to. I have some personal reservations about that, but I guess that's what we as a council need to decide what to do.
Right. So, Hazel, I don't know if you're up to speed on this, but so Amanda, who is her appeal to reduce her membership termination from indefinite to 1 year is one of the items we're voting on. She had asked if she could come out and speak to Loop and Moon at the Althing, and so my only concern there was that this isn't a Loop and Moon specific item. It's principality-wide, and then if she spoke just to the membership of Loop and Moon, the rest of the membership of the principality wouldn't get the benefit or wouldn't get the entire information. They don't have the same access to the same information that the members of Loop and Moon would have. So trying to come up with a way to sort of give everybody, all the membership, the same information, or at least access to the same information.
Yeah, I agree on that. I actually posted on that specifically that it should be something in writing, and there should be a pretty clear time limit to any conversation with Loop and Moon. It just seemed like one of those things could drag on for a while.
Well, I'm not too worried about controlling the all thing. That I'm comfortable with, and I just have, I guess, a slightly different perspective on a member's right to address the all thing.
Yeah, that's something I don't quite get, because if it's a public forum, I don't know. I could, in my setting, I could picture it getting really confusing of trying to tell somebody not to talk when they tried to talk, but at the same time, it's not necessarily the right place to do it. It's a little bit dicey.
Yeah, and again, my main concern isn't so much, she doesn't have the right to talk, but that she should be able, all of the membership should be able to hear what she has to say, because they're all voting on it.
So how would you guys feel about a compromise where she maybe made a written statement, but then came out and read it to the Loop and Moon all thing?
That's actually what I wrote down in my response to that particular thing. That something in writing that was read out and then posted so that it was the same thing was seen by everyone. If it's truly an all thing appeal, then that's more fair.
Yeah, I think that gives, membership access to the information before they vote on it, and I think that's important. And it also, doesn't limit someone's sort of option to talk to the membership.
Okay. And I guess I'll just ask that it not evolve into a Q&A session or something like that.
Right. That might be a little hard. But yeah, it at least gives all the other parks some information that they otherwise wouldn't have if she just came and talked to Loop and Moon. So I know that Ravenstone had the topic of Ty's 6-month suspension from Ravenstone on their local Althing agenda. I believe they still intend to have that. I haven't heard otherwise. And I wanted to hear from Minibard regarding the Astral Winds tabled topic of voting on leaving Northreach. It was tabled, so technically it needs to be revisited unless the membership is now asking not to revisit that, and I'm not really sure on what the status of that is. I've had informal conversations with people, and the general feeling that I have sort of gotten from people is that there isn't really strong interest in that at this time, but just from a technical standpoint, it needs to be revisited because it was tabled. So, but I haven't heard officially what the plan is on that. So I'll continue to look into that. As far as I know, those were the only June Althing items to cover. So moving on to Month of the Crown and elections. I think everybody has their letters of intent open at this point in time. Super exciting to have Icefire Bay on the same schedule as everybody else. Hooray!
Yeah, except we haven't done our letters of intent yet.
Well, they're open. They haven't been submitted yet, but they're open. I saw that they were open. People don't usually submit until the very end anyhow. We have a lot of people who have put in for Principality office, which is super cool. Frozen Coast is kicking everybody's butt as far as letters of intent for Principality office. Enthusiastic, so that's super cool. And I think I've seen at least one letter of intent for every park except Icefire Bay hasn't. I haven't seen any official from them yet, but they're getting there. Do you guys have your Crown Qual and elections scheduled and posted on the Northreach calendar?
We definitely not. We have to have a meeting this week to sort of pull some of that together. We've had some sideways issues going on that have prevented a full officers meeting.
Ours is posted.
Okay, cool. And Hazel, I would encourage you to follow the Northreach Crown Quals and elections schedule. I mean, elections will all have to be on the same weekend, so we all need to line up on elections. You have the benefit of having the Principality level Crown Quals in your backyard in Frozen Coast on July 10th, so you could totally piggyback on that and also make that your local Crown Quals. And if you did that, it would be a great opportunity for anyone in your park who's interested in learning how to be an A&S judge to shadow the judging process. So that could be a really great opportunity for Icefire Bay folks. And then you don't have to go through the whole thing of where do you hold them and how do you get enough judges and all of that, because it'd already be done for you.
Hadlin, you probably just said one of the most important sets of things at the moment that my internet dropped me completely. What I heard from you was piggyback on the Crown Quals for Frozen Coast. And I think I heard a date, but not for sure. And then I heard shadowing, and then I got dropped.
Yes, so the Principality Crown Quals will be held on July 10th in Frozen Coast. And I was suggesting that it'd be really easy for your park to simply piggyback onto that event and utilize that as your local Crown Quals. And then anyone that you have who's interested in learning the A&S judging process could easily shadow the judges through that process and get really familiar with it and see how it works.
That's a good idea to piggyback on that. We also had Aurora come down with William and some other people and run us through Crown Quals last time down here. Everything was awesome. She's very organized, although we learned that wind and little tiny pieces of paper do not mix.
That is very true. I think every park has learned that lesson the hard way at some point in time. So I think that we're pretty good to go there. Just reminding everybody again that elections will need to be held all on that same weekend. We have Principality elections, and then you'll have your local elections as well. So we just want to make sure that those calendars are syncing up and we are not running into any issues election-wise. That will also mean that you need to be in close contact with your Prime Minister to make sure that your dues paid list is up to date and accurate in the ORC, And remember that no dues can be collected the same weekend as elections, so you need to be reminding your populace that if they're interested in participating in the elections, they will need to be dues paid a minimum of 1 week prior to elections being held, or they will not be able to participate in the elections. There's a whole bunch of other voting eligibility stuff that goes in. The Prime Minister's, the Chancellor's Council should be working on that to make sure that everybody is up to speed. And if your membership has any questions about that, definitely direct them to your Prime Minister, or the Corpora is another great place to get that information, although it can be kind of confusing. So those are sort of awareness topics that we definitely want to be highlighting with all of the membership right now. Welcome to Rosedath, the Frozen Coast Monarch. The next item that we have was membership issues, and Hazel, I'm going to kind of cede the floor to you here because this was specifically in regards to an issue that's come up in Icefire Bay. So I know you posted in the council, but if we could just bring us up to speed on sort of how we're handling that.
Okay, just a quick recap. The basics is that we make our rules pretty clear, and we had a member specifically lie about their age. It was easier because he looks like he's older as well. I believe that his mom was a little bit duplicitous in it as well. We were pretty clear about ages when we read things out. I go over everything multiple times. Other people go over things multiple times. Paperwork gets signed. And there was definitely some deceit going on. We haven't yet met with the family. I called her up and had I'm dramatic, so I had a conversation with her basically saying that the member Bjorn had to meet with us and her as well prior to his being allowed back on to participating in Amped Guard events. During that meeting, should they choose to schedule it, there's a very specific set of parameters that he has to meet before we are willing to allow him, now that he is 14 and legal, to participate with us again. Let me know if you want me to go over those specifically, or would you like to look at those on the thread?
I saw them on the thread.
Yeah, I read them as well. Rosedath, had you a chance to read that?
Not yet, but I'll follow up on it.
Okay.
I had a couple of thoughts on them if we're at the point where we can talk about those.
Yeah, I imagine you do. I do too, and it's all got to do with looking at ID.
Oh, well, no, there's definitely that. But I mean, at the same time, like, if we have a minor member show up, their parents have to sign the waiver, so we check their parents' ID, but we don't check the minor's ID because we just take the parents' word for it as to their age, because a lot of minors don't have IDs. So if the parent lied about the age, you've got a whole another issue there that really it's up to you guys how you want to pursue that. But like me personally, I would just not want to deal with those people.
Yeah, that was sort of my opinion as well. So I'm looking at it from a organizational liability standpoint. And what we have is adult who is either super complacent about following our very clearly stated rules, or is willingly deceitful and willfully deceitful. So that they're willing to do that to allow this person who's clearly not allowed to participate without some special circumstances. What other risks are they willing to place the organization in? And then what risk are we willing to take on as an organization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would hazard a guess that it was done out of desperation rather than spite. This is a child that does not fit in well in many other places, as so many of our somewhat Aspergy kids don't. And this is one of the only places where they could actually have life skills that worked for them instead of worked against them. And she was so overjoyed. She showed up on almost all events, tried to help out, etc. Very proactive, very friendly. But again, obviously, either totally managed to be clueless on this one or, like you said, was deceitful. I don't know for sure that she was. I do know that he was. I do know that he looked at me and lied. I mean, that's a basic one right there.
Right. That's a really good point, though, that, I mean, the opportunities that the organization and the activity bring to, individuals who may be struggling to find a place to fit in are really valuable, and there's benefit in that to the individual.
Yeah, I mean, your insight's going to be more deeper than mine. So I mean, I kind of would defer to your expertise on that.
It may all be a moot point because I made that phone call 2 weeks ago and have not heard a peep since, and have not seen him, heard from him, no approach from him. And it may be that he's not willing to face up to the music.
Right.
Fair enough.
I very much dislike, though, having Amped Guard in general and us in personal being placed in this position. And the other thing is, I don't know if you noticed that, but there was also a camping trip, and that one really ticked me off. Because that's the one where somebody should have known that he was underage.
Right. Yeah, that's a rough spot to be in for sure. Well, I guess keep us posted, and if there's anything that we can do to be of assistance in the situation, even if it's just as a sounding board, like, hey, this is going on, have you dealt with this before? Is there an organizational precedent set? Are there any restrictions on what actions we can take based on, corpora, bylaw, insurance, or whatnot? We're definitely, as a council, here to support in situations like that.
So,
thank you. I tried
Yeah.
hard to get you in on the actual conversation, and we just couldn't get you internet-wise.
I know, it was a bummer.
So yeah, I'm pretty much, I mean, personally willing to support whatever it is you guys want to do. I did have a couple of comments though on your the quote unquote music that needed to be faced. There was actually some stuff because you posted all the things that you wanted the member do to essentially return to good standing or whatever. And I actually thought some of it was pretty cool. I kind of like your guys' idea of what amounts to community service for the group. That was pretty neat. There was one thing in there that I wanted to potentially caution you on, and it was the allowing other members to call their shots for them. I'm not entirely sure what the intent is there, but I would caution against that because then that creates situations where your membership is sort of they're basically playing Amp Guard the opposite way from what it's supposed to be played, and that may not be good for them, and it may create some weirdness on the field in general.
I guess what we were trying to get at is that if a Reeves says he's been hit, and that's actually been a problem on the field with him. He's not been an easy player. Again, in retrospect, he's 13 going on 14 is what we've had out there playing. And he was not always taking his shots. People would say, you've been hit, and he'd say no.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, as far as the Reeves go, that goes without question. And you may possibly even reminding him of that in writing and with zero tolerance. I mean, like in my parks, if a Reeve tells you something and you argue with them, you're done. We don't tolerate it, and as a result, we don't have that problem. But as far as the other players go, that just creates some field weirdness.
Yeah, so for clarification, in the sort of that section of his restrictions, was that intended to be that if a Reeve calls, there would be zero tolerance for him arguing, or is that any player?
That gets a little tricky because technically we don't always have a Reeve. In fact, I myself have not passed the Reeve test. So when I am quote unquote watching the game, I'm not a Reeve. And sometimes I'm in the play, stopping everything, holding everybody and saying, okay, look, that didn't work. Everybody stop, regroup, take 10 paces back, and we'll start play again because that player was not dead. And that's just how I've come up with to deal with it, which is not necessarily official, but is the best that I can do without a full-time available Reeve group to pull from.
So it could potentially catch some flack, but one, you guys are a Shire. Two, you're the Monarch. Put a gold sash on and Reeve your games, and in the meantime, get Reeve certified. But if you guys need a Reeve, just do it. I mean, make the games more fair, more fun, and don't worry in the immediate sense about your Reeves test. But you should probably work on getting Reeve certified.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely situations that I've experienced firsthand where there isn't somebody who's Reeve certified, but somebody needs to be the person in charge to say, this is go, this is no go, for exactly a situation like this where somebody's not calling their shots. If everybody on the field feels that they have to police everybody else on the field, it can escalate difficulties. Whereas if there's one person who is the clear authority for that game, they can take those concerns to that point of contact and say, hey, Reeve, it's your job to help with this for this game. It doesn't always have to be the same person, right? Like, you could have somebody different who Reeves each game so that no one person is stuck not playing and only reaving. Some people really enjoy reaving, some people don't really enjoy reaving, but it's a really valuable perspective to be able to take a step back out of the gameplay and watch the interactions. It makes you more aware of the rules as an individual. It makes you an individual better player, and it also allows you to provide service to your park. So that's something that you could start encouraging more, is more widespread reaving. But yeah, I understand that if you don't have somebody who is officially reaving, that does make it really difficult to draw that super clear line of the reeve called you dead, you're dead. So my solution to that would make sure you have somebody who's wearing that gold sash who can say, dude, you don't have a leg anymore. Dude, you're dead. And if you argue with me, you're gone.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to get at with that, was that because we do allow a small amount of kibitzing on the field. I know you're not supposed to, but we have a fairly give and take. Yeah, that hit, no, that glanced off, oh, okay. But this particular player has lost his right to kibitz on the field. And I guess what I need to change that to, and I really appreciate the feedback on this, is that it needs to be a reeve or a official who calls that, because our current officials are nobody's so angry or annoyed with him that they're going to kill him on purpose, thank goodness.
Right, which is great, because that does definitely set up a potential situation where if somebody on the field decides that they want to harass him over not even him and be like, you're dead. And if you argue with me, you don't get to play anymore. Whereas a reeve is, hopefully going to be pretty impartial. You avoid that potential situation.
I like that. That's a good one. We'll make that modification. I think that's appropriate. I just wanted to make sure that he understood that he had lost, again, by not being truthful, we've lost his ability to be part of the process of deciding whether he took a hit or not.
Right, yeah. So I think that little tweak, though, of just clarifying that it, he has to accept a Reeves call, will clear up, any potential issues moving forward with that. So did anybody else have anything else they wanted to discuss regarding that situation? Or Hazel, did you have any more questions for us? Or
I'm good.
okay, that brings us to our last order of new business, which is the Alaska State Fair 2016. We are doing it again this year. I have not appointed an autocrat, and I need to do that kind of immediately. Our logo has changed a little bit, so we've moved across Purple Miners Trail into the spot where the blood bank was last year. So anybody who worked the booth, it was right across the road next to the troopers. That does mean that the layout of our booth will be a little bit different, and I believe that we have more trail frontage, which should be better for our fighting arena. And we will also have electricity. So if we can get some really cool video footage, we could hang up a nice flat screen underneath one of the tents and play a loop of awesome amp guard footage. I'm thinking that maybe that really great video that was done by Alaska Dispatch would be great, because that's super compelling amp guard advertisement there, and that would be really attractive to potential new members. So that's moved forward, and I will appoint an autocrat for that sort of ASAP, so that can get underway, the planning for that. Although planning should be pretty straightforward. Again, utilizing that same formula, you got a fighting ring, you got some sword sales, we're recruiting. And we already have basically all of the setup that we need, so it should be pretty low cost to get this one going, so it should be high profit, which is always good. The only other thing that I had on the agenda was to discuss awards, and I would ask if that is a closed session, since we'll be discussing stuff that isn't necessarily public yet. So, did anybody else have anything they wanted to discuss openly at this point in time? And I guess the other question is, did anybody have any awards that they were ready to talk about yet?
I do.
Rose Death, you got anything? Maybe not. Okay. All right. Then.
No, I'm good at the moment.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording then, and we will have the rest of this discussion